I am back with Peter Trunk. It is when the Giants and Dodgers played in New York. And our guest today is Tom Zocco, who I consider to be the man with the biggest baseball library in the world. Am I far off, Tom?
I don't know. I've seen a few that are pretty large. It's amazing how many people collect books, but I've got a good-sized one.
Good-sized one. Peter, you've known Tom on Facebook, so I don't have to.
I'm not. You know what? I'm embarrassed to say that I don't. I don't know him.
Okay.
But I'm happy to meet him in this venue.
Yeah. We're going to talk about books that we all three probably. We're 69, Peter and I, years old. How old are you, Tom?
68.
68. So we're in the same era, and I want to ask you how baseball books, collecting baseball books, got started. It must have been when you were a young kid, and we're going to talk about the books that we all read as young kids that influenced our passion. I don't know if your library includes other venues, other media, other interests, or are you just baseball?
Well, Stephen King and mostly baseball. Stephen King I have too, but mostly baseball.
Okay. Well, you're not far off. Stephen King is a tremendous baseball fan.
Yes, he
Red
is.
Sox fan, from what I understand.
Red Sox, right?
Yeah. Who did you grow up rooting for when you were a kid, Tom?
Well, I grew up in central Connecticut, right in the middle of Red Sox Yankee territory. So just about every kid in housing development, I liked one of the others. I said, I got to like somebody different. I said, who do we have left? New York Giants? Nobody likes them. I'm going to like the Dodgers. So I became a Dodger fan. To this day, I'm still a Dodger fan after all these years, even though they moved away.
Where did you move? You were in Connecticut now.
No, I'm still in Connecticut. Dodgers left Brooklyn and moved to Los Angeles.
Oh, yes, we know that. Oh, yes.
Right. Oh, boy, do we know that.
Yes.
I'm still here in central Connecticut.
All right. Well, Peter's back east. He's in New Jersey. I'm in California. I moved away they left in 57, and I left for the Air Force in 65. So in those 8 years actually the Mets were formed in 62. In those years, who did you root for, Tom?
I stayed a Dodger fan.
Okay.
In fact,
and you followed them out in L.A.?
Yes, I used to follow the newspaper. The game started 11 o'clock at night, so I was a young kid. I had to be in bed, so I have to wait till the next afternoon's paper. The morning paper wouldn't have the score because it was too late, so I have to wait till the afternoon to find out whether they won or lost. It was like that way for several years until the Mets came along. Then I got to watch the Dodgers on when the Mets came, so I was happy about that. But this game was still started 11 o'clock.
Did it ever go through your mind to be a Mets fan?
No, never.
Okay.
I was through my Dodgers. But I always think the one time that the game started 11 o'clock at night, Sandy Koufax throws a no-hitter against the Mets. The game got over 20-3 in the morning. So I was a 14-year-old kid. I said, my parents were in bed. If they catch me still up, I'm going to catch hell, so I got to get to bed real quick. Then I couldn't fall asleep. I was so psyched I couldn't fall asleep. Sandy was my hero as a kid. Sandy Koufax and Maury Wills.
Well, who was your first hero as a Dodger growing up?
I think Duke Snyder, I would say.
All right. You guys have something in common.
They moved away a couple of years. I was like 9 years old, 10 years old when they moved away. So and then Duke got old mighty fast.
Okay, let's go around the room a little bit. Books that we remember reading early on as kids. We'll start with the guest, Tom Zocco.
Okay, I remember we had this library in school. I was in sixth grade, and they had this book, Joe DiMaggio, Lucky to Be a Yankee. So that was the first baseball book I read. And I was fascinated by that. Then I started going to the library. I started picking up these Gene Shore, Milton Shapiro books.
Gene Shore, yeah. I remember Gene Shore.
Yeah. I used to read all those books.
Did either of you guys read baseball fiction, and Mark Harris in particular,
I read a lot of baseball fiction. John Tunis.
Ah. How about you, Tom?
Not really. I don't know if you're familiar with Troy Seuss.
No, I'm not.
Murder at Fenway Park, he murderized murder.
Oh, yeah. Murder at Fenway Park, murder at that field, murder at Wrigley Field. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I read those books. I'm good friends with Troy. People used to think Troy was my little brother. We were younger back then. We both had dark hair, both had mustaches. They thought he was my little brother all the time. So I bought all his books. Those are the only fiction books I've read. Those and the fiction stories and the fireside books of baseball. I've read those, but I'm not much into baseball fiction.
Oh, the fireside books.
You know what,
Einstein in there.
Ralph, did you mention Mark Harris?
Yes, I did. He wrote.
Mark Harris. Correct me if I'm wrong. He wrote "Bang the Drum Slowly."
Yes.
Yes, he did. And
he also wrote "The Southpaw." It looks like forever. A ticket for a
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, I have those books. I read those books.
I have one. There's one paperback edition that has 3 of those books, and the trilogy, and then came "It Seemed Like Forever" or whatever. And it's just great fiction. It almost puts you back to Sal Magley, this guy growing up. I would think he was patterned after Sal Magley when I was a kid. When I was reading that, because it was just upstate New York, and it was just a simple life, and this guy, it was just wonderful reading. But it was almost like Mandingo, which was written in dialect.
Okay.
Of
dialect.
I should be in radio, right? I got to go. So it takes a long time to read what they're actually saying. You almost have to translate it. Wow, that sounded really inarticulate, even for me, which is going somewhere. So your first book was about the Yankees. My first book, I'll go first because I'm rattling away here, was, it's almost tied, Bob Fella's story. My grandparents had it in paperback in their house, and Sal Magley, the biography of Sal Magley that had him as a rebel who played in the Mexican League and didn't reach the majors until his very, very late 20s, and so those 2 books really influenced me. Peter.
Well, I read the John Tunis books. John Tunis was a college professor in New York City. I believe it was NYU. It could have been Columbia. But he wrote in the 30s and the 40s, and I got to read his books in the 50s when I was a kid. He wrote The Kid from Tompkinsville and The Kid Who Batted 1,000, and they were all related to the Brooklyn Dodgers. I don't know how he got around it. I guess MLB wasn't really too specific back then on who they were going to chase or go after, but he actually called his teams the Brooklyn Dodgers, and they played the New York Giants, and they played the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Philadelphia Phillies, etc. He didn't even bother to change the name. He only changed the names of the ball players, but they were loosely followed. Like if you were a fan back then, you could tell who he meant was to be Leo DeRocher, and you could tell who he meant to be Burley Grimes, and you could tell who he meant to be this one and that one and stuff. It was very, very cool. And I read those when I was a kid. Like I said, got them out of the library and read them. And then much later in my life, like maybe 5 or 7 years ago, I found them all for sale for like a penny on Amazon. So I bought all 6 of them or 8 of them or whatever, and got them all again and read them again on the beach when I would go to the beach with my wife Linda. They're just absolutely fantastic books, really, really good. And that's how I began.
Yeah. Tom, I'm going to ask you, when you collect books, do you collect anything specifically about baseball or any baseball book that comes out? In other words, you have an interest like a specific team, in your case, the Dodgers, most of your books on the Dodgers maybe, or is it all baseball?
It's all baseball. So like the Red Sox wild card one in 2004, they had like about 8 books coming out. I didn't buy any of those because I'm not a big fan of the wild card, so those kind of books I won't buy.
Right.
But they come out with history of the Red Sox or those those are the kind of books I like to read.
Let me ask you, Tom, in your opinion, in your humble opinion, which book did you enjoy more, Bums or Boys of Summer?
I like Bums more. They were both good, but Peter Golenbach, just getting all those fans' views of each play, kind of felt like you were there.
Ralph and I concur.
Well, I do too.
Yep.
Yeah, obviously I'm Ralph. You concur-y. More so, I guess I have to be influenced, having known Peter Golenbach and co-hosting a show with him that he stars in on my network. I'm prejudiced. But I learned so much from Dynasty and Bums. And I so much enjoyed Roger Kahn's book. It wasn't a matter of not enjoying it. It was just a matter of, I think I mentioned, I used the expression, it's a little schmaltzy more so than Bums. Bums was more the player's view, and you really can't compare. It's almost apples to oranges. Roger Kahn's book is written in his words, but basically Mr. Golenbach's book is just taken from interviews that he transcribes. Yeah. But the key is what questions to ask to elicit the answers. You can't just say, well, I'm doing a book. Tell me what you think. Give him the mic. It's not interviewing ain't all that easy. Where do you buy your books from? Do you use Amazon? Do you you go into the city and haunt used bookstores like I used to do when I lived in New York?
I used to go to the used bookstores. The Amazon I use mostly now, or sometimes I'll go on eBay looking for certain books, but Amazon's the best place to look for books.
Okay.
Yeah. I agree.
And what was your, again, what did you learn about baseball as a kid reading these books before you got to really see baseball? Baseball's a summer sport. It's a seasonal sport. We learned about baseball through the sports columnists that we read, and B, books about baseball. What did you learn early on where you said, wow, this is going to spur my interest in the game, Tom?
Well, don't forget that you used to have a baseball game called All-Star Baseball.
Yes.
You had those discs and you spin it.
I had it.
That's right.
An Ethan Allen game. I had it as well.
Yes, Ethan Allen.
Made by Kodako. Right. I had it.
Yes.
In fact, I still have it.
So that's what I learned.
Really?
Yeah, those are worth a lot of money now.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Did it have a pitcher's?
No.
Did you a pitcher's card too, or was it just hitters?
It was just hitters, but the pitchers were included. Like, for instance, Don Newcomb had a card that you put on. You'd spin it, and one was Newcomb's a home run.
Card first, and then the hitter. Am I correct in my memory?
No. You would do like Gilliam, Reese, and Snyder. Okay, so Gilliam would lead off. You'd spin it. If it came up an 11, he hit a double. So you'd put the little peg at second base. Now Reese was up. If you wanted to bunt him to second, you just you like spun it. If it was 5, it was a triple. If it was 1, it was a home run. If it was 10, it was a strikeout. Right. Just like that.
It wasn't just random. The cards were designed to give a higher percentage of probability.
To a degree, yes. Like Snyder's home run was much bigger than Reese's, and to a degree.
Kind of thing.
But it was nowhere.
But was there a spot for pitchers to control the game in any way?
You were the pitcher.
No.
You pitched. You spun. Whoever spun was the pitcher.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
The later games were much more sophisticated, way more sophisticated.
The APA.
But that was the first game I had.
Yeah, but getting back to that, that was the first game I had. So I learned, like, I knew who Lefty Gomez was. He had Lefty Grove, who I'd never heard of. So I learned Hank Greenberg.
Right.
I started learning some of these players were playing those spin games like that.
Right.
Harry Heilman, I remember getting his card, and it would encourage you to ask questions about these people. And this was all before the computer was able to give us the baseball encyclopedia.
Oh yeah. I was in the Army when that came out.
Now it's a lot easier to go and find out, compare records, eras, this, that, the other thing. Back then, when we were kids, it was very difficult to compile information in order to basically form opinions, which come from, you couldn't really know that Phil Rizzuto was any better or any worse than Pee Wee Reese just from watching him. Because you don't see him enough games, it's television in those days, but it's what you get from the commentators and the authors. And I'm trying to think of who influenced me in terms of analyzing which players were better. There used to be a book,
I'll tell you who influenced
The Greatest
me.
Year in Baseball. Do you remember that would come out?
Oh yes, I have those.
Right, and I remember 1954, 1955, all those years, and you'd get the greatest players of baseball as a pocketbook that came out. It was Dell, right, and that influenced it. Baseball Digest, or the magazines would come out.
The books that made the most sense, though, were the first. At least to me, were the first baseball abstracts by Bill James.
Oh, absolutely. But we were adults. By then we were...
Yes, we were. But it rekindled my interest. It not only rekindled my interest, but it actually gave, like if I said, well, Darryl Strawberry is the greatest right fielder the Mets ever had. Well, you know what? Bill James took a whole few pages and explained why that was true or it wasn't true. And it all made sense.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Funny you mentioned Bill James. I went to a Sabre convention one year. Young Bill James. We roomed together.
Oh, cool.
This guy's pretty interesting. But later on, people say, "What was he like?" I said, "He's just Bill James to me." But he's done real well for himself over the years. But
yeah, he still works for the Red Sox.
Yeah, and he's got his numbers. But I thought, like this war, I thought he invented it. He goes, "No," he said, "I didn't invent that stuff. Some of these things are coming out with now are so crazy. There's 10 different ways you get war."
Right.
Wins above replacement.
Yeah.
Wins above replacement, Ralph.
Yes.
Yeah.
About 10 different formulas for the same
my
thing.
favorite stat has to be OBS.
OPS, I love it.
Yeah, that, and not just for the hitter, for the pitcher, to see what's being hit off the pitcher. Yeah, that's. But the rest of the war, I just haven't gotten into yet, and I plan to learn in the very near future.
You know when the best time to learn that, Ralph, in my opinion, is in the wintertime.
Yes.
When
right,
you got the Jones for baseball, but ain't gonna be no baseball, and it ain't gonna be no baseball next week either. So that's the time when you study what WAR is and OPS and WHIP and all those things, and you look at it and you read about it. It's wonderful.
Yeah,
really
WHIP's a great pitching staff. Pitching line. WHIP is hits and walks per 9 innings.
Yeah.
So anything under
per
one something, 1.4, actually 1.2 or 3 is really excellent. And do you guys play fantasy baseball at all? Just out of curiosity.
I don't.
I played it once. Salary cap, I think it was called. I played it once. I got more interested in what the players were doing than what the team was doing. I finished second. And I said, "That's it. I'm not getting involved in this. I'm telling that Ethier, you got to make it now so Loney can drive the run-ins so I get the points." I said, "What am I saying? I just want the Dodgers to win. I'm rooting against players. I got to get out of this stuff."
Mm-hmm.
Right. That is the one down.
That's interesting.
The one up though is that you can really map out your managerial and your GM strategy. What would you do if you could do it? I finished 8th, 7th. What would I do? Gives you a respect for what big league managers and general managers go through, especially general managers. But I will say this: the one nice part about it, you're playing a fantasy league. It's a balanced field. You all play the same amount of games against the same amount of players. MLB, the way it is in an inordinate amount of ways imbalanced. It's given the salaries, this, that, and the other thing, the ballparks, who you play, you're playing an unbalanced schedule, and it's really everything needs an asterisk these days. That's how I look at it. I miss those days when there were 8 teams in each league. You played each other 22 times. You got to know each other. They travel. Expansion for me ruined it only from the sense that you had to see it cheapened it. From the first time in '61, you could see that if you're taken as a little kid, not a little kid, we were like 15 or whatever, if a 15-year-old could see that you're drafting players from each team, aren't you weakening the depth of whatever you're drafting from, unless the Mets are drafting from you? Then it's addition by subtraction. And you go back to Branch Rickey, ladies and gentlemen, and that's how we tie it all together, being a Met fan.
I miss those days. First place, you got into the World Series. None of this wild card, none of this DH, this other kind of crazy stuff coming up. It's not.
I hate the DH.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, you got to be a player. You got to be able to do both. If you're a great hitter and you expose yourself in the field, your team takes a hit for that, and that's the way it is.
Right.
It's a balanced thing. And I don't think it does much. I really don't think it does much for they say baseball's a boring game. It really isn't. But in the American League, it's much more boring than the National League. Let's put it that way. It isn't boring, but if it were to be, it would be in the American League, not the National League.
Yeah, you get too fat to play in the National League, you go to the American League and become a DH. Like and Sandoval and Ortiz. These guys they couldn't play in the National League that long. They wouldn't have.
Well, that's been going on for a long time. What with Cepeda went over, became a great DH for a long time. He was hurt. He lost the step. He lost this, but that's part of it. Past. That should be. Well, he only played 9 years because he hurt his knee. All right, that's way to go. A lot of guys. That happened to a lot of guys. You know,
Guimano played on bad knees, but when you're done, you're done.
Exactly.
Being a Dodger fan, one guy I always had the most respect for is Madison Bumgarner, a pitcher that can hit like that. You got to love the guy.
Right. He does hit well.
He's hit 2 home runs off Kershaw.
There were some really good hitters in our days when the Giants and Dodgers played in New York.
Oh, the Dodgers had the best. A lot
of them were Yankees. Don Larson.
Dodgers had the best. Had the best. Newcomb, baby.
Yeah,
the guy hit
right.
359, 7 home runs. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
The guy was unbelievable.
That's right.
He could rake.
Yankees had Turley, too, who was a pretty good hitter. But Newcomb was about as good,
Tommy Byrne
good a
was
hitter.
a good hitter for the Yankees. Yeah. Tommy Byrne could hit for the Yankees.
Yeah, Tommy Byrne pinch hit Grand Slam home run one time even. He was so good.
Yeah.
Use him as a pinch hitter.
When I went to a
Lost
Dodgers
the 7th game to the Dodgers in 1955.
Who's that?
Yep.
Tommy Byrne.
Oh, yeah. Right. Yes, he did. I went to a Dodger weekend here in Jersey about 6 or 8 years ago. And Saturday was Brooklyn, and Sunday was Los Angeles. They had all the guys come back and stuff. And it was really great. But one of the things I want to bring up was that I talked with Newcomb, and I told him, in my opinion, that when the Dodgers were always searching around for a left fielder, why the hell didn't they just put you out there?
Yeah.
And let you hit fifth or sixth? You know? Why did they keep searching around for somebody who couldn't do anything? I mean, they just should have put you out there. He just laughed at me. But boy, could he hit. He could really hit.
Yeah. He was no Gene Hermansky, though, huh?
That's what you could replace. It's funny, you mentioned
just
Don.
made my point.
Don's still bitter.
I
He said
know.
about Don's still bitter about equal rights. He said we weren't equal except when it came to paying taxes and getting drafted in the military. We weren't equal to anything else. He's 90 years old and he's still bitter. Yes.
Oh, he's definitely bitter. He's definitely bitter. He talked to the. I don't want to get into it now because I don't want to turn the show political. But he is. Take it from me. Don Newcomb is still very bitter, very bitter. And I could go on and on about it, but I don't want to bore you.
Please go into it, Peter.
Well, let's put it like this. When I went to the Dodger weekend and I spoke with him and all kinds of other Dodgers, Newcomb wouldn't even give the time of day to people like Steve Garvey or Oral Hershiser or Ralph Branca or people like that. He talked to the janitor in the place. It was a hotel that they were using it. He sat down and hung out with the janitor instead of the ex-Brooklyn Dodgers. And you know what? That's his prerogative to do that. But I said,
Ralph Branca was friendly.
But here's a guy. He's still pissed off. He's still pissed off.
Right.
Nothing changed, you know?
One of the nicest guys to Jackie Robinson was Ralph Branca. That's surprising. You want to talk to Ralph Branca?
It was an eye-opener for me, I'm telling you. Eye-opener.
Well, what do you mean he didn't want to talk to Ralph Branca? He wouldn't not talk to Ralph Branca, but he talked to the janitor first. Is that what you're saying?
Well, he spent all his time with the janitors. He drank coffee with the janitors. He ate lunch with the janitors. He did not spend any time with the white guys. He paid us very little. One word answer, a chuckle, whatever. But he, you know what? I'm not saying he was wrong. I'm saying what I observed. So when I hear from someone that I never met before, like our guest, and he tells me that Newcomb is bitter, I have to agree 100%. The guy is still bitter, and he is 89, 90 years old. He's still bitter, and you want to know what? Maybe he should be bitter. I don't know. I never had black skin. I never had to go through that. I never had to go through any of that crap. So maybe I would be bitterer, if there's such a word, more bitter than Don Newcomb if I were a black man. I'm not judging him. I'm just telling you what I observed. Simple as that.
And all feelings are genuine, so if he has these feelings, there they are. You know, you have to admire that he brought it out. You know what I'm saying?
I'm just glad he's a friendly guy. See those picture of how big he was when he was pitching. I wouldn't want to throwing a ball at my head.
No. Nuke could bring it. He's big, 6'4", 225.
Yeah.
He could bring it.
He got a bad rep about not doing well in the World Series, and I would, even as a Giant fan as a kid, I would say, who got him to the World Series?
Exactly.
He lost 2 years to the military. That's why I kept him out of the Hall of Fame.
I was a good debater because I get to hear both sides from my friends, many of whom had older brothers. And I remember telling Neil Silver, who lived across the street from me, my age, and I said, Neil, in 1955 or 56, Jackie Robinson, quote, is my quote, Jackie Robinson is all washed up. And Neil looks at me and he says, if he died tomorrow, he'd be better than you'll ever be. If he were, I thought it was a great line. If he were dead, he'd still be better than you'll ever be.
And all of us Dodger fans would agree with that.
Right, and he learned that
Jackie was great.
from his older brother. Jackie was great. It always
Oh boy, was he ever?
Not so much that he was great, that he was as great as he was, given what he was up against. Like great players, always in any, you could see a Ted Williams or DiMaggio go back to the hotel, relax, be pampered, this, that, and the other thing. There's no relaxing for Jackie, ever.
No.
And I believe that it killed him way too early. Having to internalize what he did led to his demise. I don't know if it's which came first, the chicken or the egg. Diabetes had a lot to do with it.
Yeah,
but that could be part of it. The mind can bring on stuff, and if you overeat, that as a defense, as your Jones or whatever, that's
sure.
Really diabetes. Yeah, and plus, life wasn't easy for him. You talk about being bitter. When the Mets were formed, Jackie had some hand, if I remember, in pre-game shows and after-game shows. I don't know, it was before Branca with Cosell or whatever. He hated Stengel. He hated the Mets losing. He made Mets fans angry that they were losing because he had that competitive spirit, and he realized that he would have been much more capable of managing the Mets, and he was never asked, than Stengel was, given Stengel's age at that time.
Yeah.
So, and that he'd fall asleep on the bench, but he was the man for the job. He was the public relations guy. He'd stay up all night.
That's true.
The writers drinking.
True.
And in 7 short years, from 62 to 69, they became world champions. So that had a lot to do with Weiss laying the groundwork for that too. So, books. Your favorite all-time book. Start with you, Tom. Your favorite all-time baseball book.
In the glory of their times.
Glory of their times. Ritter.
Yes, Larry Ritter.
No, Rimmer. One was Ritter. Jack Ritter, who had 2 women, which I always admired. It's just me. You have one.
Three's
that's
Company.
Good.
I get everything you say, Ralph. I get everything you say.
Right. I know you do, and I hear you laughing, and that's what I live for.
Three's Company.
Three's Company. But the other guy was not Ritter. He was Rimmer. Am I right?
Okay.
Tom?
Rimmer, I'm not familiar with him.
No, I'll tell you who Rimmer was. Rimmer wrote a book called The Rebellion of Yale Merit. And if Robert Rimmer wrote many books on multiple relationships, dyads, what have you. Early on, I read him early on. Rebellion of Yale Merit, and there was one that was really a hit, really a bestseller, and I can't think of it. I just can't think of it right now, but Google that if you will. It's not baseball, but it's fun. And it puts ideas in your head when you're a kid, and you could live life in an alternative way and be yourself and live this long.
You mentioned the Glory of the Times. I met Larry Ritter years ago at a Sabre convention. It was great to meet him. That was the best book I ever read. It just felt like you were there, all these old-time ball players talking about the old times. It was just a great book. My favorite of all time.
Yeah, I had as a guest, I can't think of his name. He's a fellow that wrote the book. We played the game. It was about 64 major leaguers. He traced, and he was a guest on my show, and I'm blanking. And he mentioned that book is the book that he used as kind of a role model, as an example of what he wanted to do. Great book. You're absolutely right. Your favorite book, Mr. Trunk?
Well, there's so many. I can't really as I was listening to you guys, I was thinking to myself, oh man, what am I going to say? There's like 50 of them, but I'm gonna just name a book. I'm gonna put a name of a book out there, and I want your reaction to it, either one or both. There was a book that was written, I'm gonna guess, 10 years ago, and it was called 1949.
Yeah.
Roger Halberstam. David Halberstam.
Yes,
David Halberstam.
That was a hell of a book.
That was
I'm
a
going to
beautiful
tell you,
book.
in my opinion, it's a hell of a book. Basically about a lot of stuff, but it's about the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees back in the day, back in the 40s, before my time. I was like 3 years old when this stuff went down. Very, very interesting. Very interesting.
Talks about
book.
DiMaggio's heel injury. And, how much
talks
of
about
that?
who drank a lot, who did. It was one of those kind of books where when you saw yourself getting toward the end, you would put it down and go do something else because you didn't want to finish it. You didn't want it to be over.
Like losing a friend. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I
didn't want the book
known that
to be
feeling
over.
in many books. And then you keep them and you go back over them and you get...
Sure.
I'll tell you,
no doubt about it.
The book for me is Willie's Time by Charles Einstein. I've probably mentioned this 20 times in these years. It was just wonderfully written. And
what year was that written, Ralph?
In the 70s.
Oh, okay.
75 or 76, if I remember.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
Because it goes all through Willie's career with the Mets. And the chapters are presidents in Willie's times. So Hoover's a chapter and so on down the line. And it was just very well done. Willie's childhood, and you get an idea what it was, and you get an idea of the joy that Willie brought to the Giants in those years, to baseball, to the world.
Einstein was a great writer.
Charles Einstein, absolutely a great writer.
He did the Fireside Books of Baseball also.
Yes, I said that before. He edited those books, and those books had cartoons in them.
Yes.
And very funny cartoons that, and as a kid, I liked humor. I later became a comedian, so I have to mention the book by Joe Garogiola, Baseball's a Funny Game. And it combined what I liked, make people laugh, it's funny. It's nice. You get a good feeling. See people laughing, good feeling. See people laughing over baseball. Now, wow, that was pretty cool. And I don't remember exactly what was in Baseball's a Funny Game or any of the stories, but I do remember that his self-depreciation was appreciated. He humanized himself.
Self-deprecation. He used that. He overused that. He overused.
Right.
In my opinion, he overused that. He wasn't that bad of a ball player. Now Bob Uecker was, but he wasn't. And also, he spiked Jackie at least once or twice on purpose. I'll never forgive him for that. So don't ask me to be a fan of Joe Garagiola.
Okay, I won't.
He spiked Jackie at least once or twice on purpose, and then denied it.
Do you remember the Johnny Mize chapter in that book, Baseball is a Funny Game?
I don't. Why don't you recall?
Johnny Mize had a lot to drink the night before, so the next day he came in, they poured alcohol in his T-shirt and lit it on fire. And Johnny goes, I guess I did drink a lot last night, didn't I?
That's good. That's a good one.
That didn't stop Johnny from drinking afterwards, but I guess he just shook him up and he thought he really tied one on that night.
Right. That's good.
That's funny.
But it's funny, Joe Garagiola. They had the game of the week. He used to do it with Vince Scully.
Yeah.
He said to Vince Scully, I once had 5 hits in a game. And Vince says, yeah, baloney. So I keep track of that. So I looked up the box where I sent it to him, and he was all thankful. Sent me an autographed NBC Joe Garagiola card. So years later, I saw him at Sabre. Years later, I saw him at a Sabre convention. So he's telling me he never forgot dates. I says, "Do you remember getting 5 hits in the game?" He goes, "Yeah, May 5th, 1952." Then he says, "Did you send me that?" He remembered. He looked at my name and recognized.
Oh.
He says, "It was amazing." He just passed away, recently. But he was really bubbly. It was really fun to be around.
That's funny.
Yeah. Well, let me that's a great story. I'm going to tell you a quick story while I think about it. I've never thought of this on the air. The Mets were playing the Giants when Joe Torre was the manager, and Doug Flynn is the second baseman, and Taveras is the shortstop. And they were like on this horrible losing streak, and nothing was going right. And I was living in Sacramento, and I called up I called up the hotel Torre was staying in, and I got a voice message. And I said in the voice message, "Why don't you try something? I'm a Met fan. This sounds crazy. Why don't you try something? Put Flynn at shortstop and put Taveras at second base. How could you go wrong?" Or something like that. And damned if the next game, and it was the first time he ever did that, where he switched them. So that's my history making things. Same thing.
How did they do?
I don't remember, but I'll bet you 5-1 they lost. Being a Met fan, you could pick any day. How'd they do? I wrote something. I remember on the blog or on something the other day where it was a quote from Johnny Carson in 1962. He said, he's doing a monologue. He says, "The Mets caught a break today. They weren't scheduled."
Right.
So, and
then the old one when who was the woman that used to be affiliated with the New York Giants, Mrs. Payson?
Yes,
Joan
Mrs.
Payson.
Yes.
Joan Payson was in Europe on vacation in Europe, and her driver or her valet or something came through and said, Mrs. Payson, the Mets scored 17 runs today. And she said, "Did they win?"
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
She was
Mrs.
part of.
Payson, speaking of when the Giants and Dodgers played in New York, Mrs. Payson sat on the board of directors for the New York Giants.
Yes,
and was the lone dissenting vote for the move.
Yep.
So
true. And M. Donald Grant
her,
was the mover and shaker to move them out.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, look that one up.
That.
Turned out good for her though.
You know it's a great stat. This is a great stat. I gotta get it in. I gotta shoehorn it in before we all hang up. You guys were talking about Johnny Mize before, about the alcohol on his undershirt and stuff, and they lit it up and all that stuff. Johnny Mize, when you get off of this podcast, go look up our Retro Sheet or whatever you use. Look up Johnny Mize the year he hit 51 home runs.
Struck out like 32 times.
And look how many times he struck out.
Yeah, it was like 32
That's all I
or
want
something
you
like
to
that.
do. That's all I want you to do.
More than he struck out.
All I want you to do is look at the year Johnny Mize hit 51 homers. Look how many times he struck out. And then think about today's ball players that strike out 225, 235, 245 times. And they're making $18 million a year.
Yes.
It's wild.
Even a guy like Big
Ted. This guy in the early 60s named Nicholson with Baltimore.
Yeah, Swish.
Swish Nicholson struck out like 120 times, 130 times, and that was just an incredible amount. That would make little blurbs. And look what's happening now. And
Snyder used to lead the National League in the 90s. He would lead the National League with 91 strikeouts.
Now a guy does that now, they say he's good. He only struck out 91 times this year.
Exactly. That's my point. Amazing.
And what gets me is if you're striking out a lot and you don't have power. I mean, That is crazy. I mean, if you don't have a good on base percentage and you're not hit, then you got problems if you don't have power. Let's put it that way. So, all right, guys, this has been terrific. You are wonderful as usual, Mr. Trunk, and you've been a great guest, Tom. I'm happy that you took the time to be in the zone with us.
Hey, enjoyed the conversation.
I hope you did, and I hope you'll come back sometime. And you've been a pleasure, Peter. As we do, we enjoy the hell out of this. And
yes, we do. Yes, we do. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Yes,
thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. And I'm just going to end by telling everybody to keep on keeping on. Life ain't easy. Hang in there. No one knows it more than the old zigzag man. But it's worth it in the end, and just keep your eye on the ball. All that stuff. And Tipper Canoe and Tyler, too. And that, I don't know. I have no plans. If I were Edward R. Murrow or somebody, let me just say this has been a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production. Adios, everybody.
Adios, guys.